All right, let's do it, guys. Hit the books. Monday edition, Week 8 college football already, alongside the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joey Knish. I'm merely Brad Powers. Before we get to the upcoming slate of games and, of course, best bets at the end of the show, we always take a peek and a look at last week's results, who impressed us, who didn't, who was up, who was down, and of course, best bets, which just so happened to not have a good week. We're still 23-16 on the season after a 1-4 finish last week. First and foremost, though, Knish, before we talk about these best bets, I always got to ask you, it just so happened to have a nice bye. What's happening with your Detroit Lions? They're going to come out of the bye week strong?
Oh, we're resting up. Danny's coaching them up. We're getting healthy. The Cowboys, they're in for a good one this weekend, babe. Little bounce back. We get the season back online, and listen, I wouldn't want to be a Cowboys fan this weekend. I'll tell you that.
Even with Dak back?
Screw Dak. We'll put him out of the game. Listen, but we're in the Lions den, baby. Danny's, listen, we're not happy about this start, and the Cowboys are going to feel it.
I hear you, buddy. We will get to your Michigan Wolverines here in a second that also, I think, situated themselves quite nicely last weekend. But first, let's talk best bets.
I think Ryan Day is actually hiding under my couch here, shivering at the thought of another, hardball going up again, putting him out. So, yeah, I'm Ryan, everything will be okay. Go relax. Come watch the show. So, yeah, no, quite an effort there in Ann Arbor.
The countdown is on. That's going to be, some scene there in Columbus. Probably going to be 11-0 Michigan and 11-0 Ohio State. Wink, wink, hint, hint, once we get to that one. Let's start with a positive. Stanford, your best bet. Outright upset win over the Golden Domers. Nice win there, Knish. That was all you.
Well, I love, like when we can get an outright, obviously, I mean, we were due for, you can't win every week in this game. So we were due for a little bit of a down week. And you know what? At least Stanford came through for us. I think the Notre Dame offense kind of regressed back to what we thought it was. And the Tommy, the kitchen's getting pretty hot in the Tommy Rees household there. Even though I'm not totally gonna say that it's his fault. I don't think they have very good players on offense. So I thought Stanford had a nice game plan to slow them down there and came out and first FBS win in a long time for the tree there. So, that was a good one. I'm sure I will don't let me forget Holton Aylor slander in the negative, though. But,
Stanford. God, yeah. So East Carolina, that doesn't come through in a wild game there. SMU started the poor weekend, which was so ridiculous. I mean, I could mention 20 plays in that game. I mean, specifically the touchdown right before the half, the horse, taking a shit on the field, basically, that represented, how I did even betting wise. I mean, there was several, I would say, you're supposed to get home cooking down there in Texas. The officiating was abysmal, to say the least. There was, I don't know, because of a inadvertent whistle, allows Navy to, go down and keep a drive together. That was unbelievably bad. And then, of course, they score in the final seconds to get the backdoor. So that wasn't good. Notre Dame over wasn't, for obvious reasons. Notre Dame's offense, like you mentioned, reverted back to what we saw against Marshall. And then I thought Stanford could, move the football a little bit more, but I mean, they kind of struggled. So if you told me, 16 points Stanford's held to, I would actually question whether or not you would have won your bet. I mean, so Notre Dame's offense really, really underperformed, to say the least. And then, Minnesota. Are you kidding me? I was told by my guys as late as Friday that the Illinois quarterback was going to be out. The line goes to 7. I'm feeling good. I mean, Minnesota was one of my biggest bets of the week. All of a sudden, DeVito's going to play Saturday morning. I mean, unbelievable. Just bad info is what I got from not just one person, multitude of people told me that. So
I heard Mr. Bielema, there's a rumor in the grapevine that Mr. Bielema might have told some people around the network and told some other people and basically told everybody that he wasn't gonna play, and so that got out to a lot of people, including us. And and then not only does he play, he starts the game now like red hot, 9 for 9, just throwing it everywhere across the park. I will say, obviously, I think we would have had a significantly higher shot with Mr. Sikowski in there. Minnesota, though. Yikes.
I got killed. Mean, not that we would have had a winning bet. Anyways.
I mean, they were like without Autumn Bell in their offense, they cannot stretch the field, and so they're a team that's basically now, if you can hold their run game, they can't hit any explosive plays. Tanner Morgan was brutal. This is a team that I thought was like a few weeks ago could potentially run the table in the West. Was the chalk to go to the Big Ten title game. Now, is Burt going to do it in year 2? I mean, they got a home game versus Purdue that basically, if they win that, they're going to the Big Ten championship.
They got before that Buckeye game, you got to play Illinois for you Michigan Wolverine fans. That game,
I know, which was not exactly a layup as I would have thought even like 48 hours ago.
Exactly. So we'll get to Minnesota because I want to talk about them a little bit later. I think a very interesting handicap, their game against Penn State this week. I kind of want to dive into that later. So obviously that was a disappointment. But let's move on from the best bets. Let's talk about some of the teams that did impress us last week. And I'd be, an idiot if I didn't bring up, the game of the year so far in college football for obvious reasons. Tennessee upsetting Alabama. You have to be impressed with what Tennessee did, especially because, coming in, we thought Bryce Young might be less than 100%. I'm here to tell you, he looked 100%, and still Tennessee still found a way to pull the outright upset, ending that 15-game losing streak against Alabama. And, I'm not here to say Tennessee has arrived, but they're close. I mean, we'll see what they can do in a few weeks against Georgia. I mean, they still got that game, but my goodness, what an effort from Tennessee. I don't think it was that fluky. I mean, certainly they benefited from some idiotic penalties, uncharacteristic, at least of past Alabama teams. Maybe this year's team commits a lot of penalties, but I mean, kudos to Hendon Hooker, Tennessee offense, Josh Heupel. They got it rolling down there in Knoxville, Knish.
I'm about to sing Rocky Top again. I'm about to give you another rendition after that fantastic dub. I mean, that was, as you said, nothing fluky about it. I mean, they were trading punch for punch with Bama, and I want to. So I'll ask you 2 questions. Number 1, are you considering at all? I'm not. Are you considering at all any Bama 5-1 out there? Number 2, if let's say Tennessee loses to Georgia, does an 11-1 Tennessee non-SEC champ have a chance to make the playoff, or will they make the playoff?
That's a really good question, especially with a feather in their cap. I guess it's going to depend on who's left, but they got a shot. It needs to be a close loss against Georgia for obvious reason. They can't get blown out in the game. I'm not sure that they will. I mean, considering what I saw on Saturday. So they got a realistic shot. So, I mean, I bet them 100-1 in the summer to win the SEC, just because I thought, man, 100-1 at that time, I thought they were clearly the second best team in the East. I thought, you're going to give me the second best team in the division, 100-1. Sure, why not? I'm not there yet as far as national title, but man, Another ticket that I'm happy with is Hendon Hooker, 80-1 to win the Heisman. I think, what is he now, like plus 250? So I'm okay with my future, with my portfolio on Tennessee right now. You asked me about Alabama. I'm not running the window yet. I mean, I already got him plus 325. I bet that sucker back in January, the night of last year's national title. Man, I'll tell you, without Bryce Young, that's a pretty – I don't want to say average, but I tweeted this out, Knish. Alabama's a 3-loss team without Bryce Young. I mean, he covers a lot of inefficiencies. And for a team that recruits like Alabama, they shouldn't have the problems that they have at wide receiver, lack of playmakers. I know a lot of guys that went to the draft the last 3-4 years, but still, I mean, you don't have a lot of playmakers on the outside. And then defensively, where's these defensive backs, man? I mean, you got Tennessee guys running up and down the field wide open. I mean, I get it. Tennessee's got a great offense, but still, I mean, sooner or later, you got to make a stop. I mean, if you want to beat the Buckeyes, you're going to have to make some stops, because the difference between Tennessee and Ohio State is Ohio State actually plays a little bit of defense. So I'm not doubling down on Alabama national title futures.
I mean, because you're looking at, they've got to run the table, which I think well, it's not like they've got to, they got to run the table. Then they got to beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And then you got to win 2 playoff games against, Ohio State, or Michigan, or Clemson. So, I mean, just think about, like, if you parlayed all those together, what number are you going to get out of that? So I don't see any, like, I just don't see any value on Bama right now. Even I'd have to get us significantly higher than 5-1 to talk into that, because, as you said, they don't. If it was a flukish victory and I thought they were a truly elite team, then you could. But it's a team that probably should have lost to Texas, a team that lost to Tennessee, a team that's got to go now run the table and beat Georgia, and then having to go beat, like, it's just it's probably the most average Bama team. Even again, still one of the upper tier in college football, but for them, they're just not. It's not a vintage elite Bama team. And I could see, I'm at this point, I would be a little surprised if they beat Georgia in a SEC title game.
Yeah, I mean, I have Alabama number 3 in my power ratings right now, behind obviously Ohio State and Georgia. I get it. People are going to be like, well, how do you still have them ahead of Tennessee? Tennessee just beat them. Come on, a neutral field. Give me Alabama against Tennessee. That was an unbelievable scene in Rocky Top. And if it's a neutral field, I'm not sure Tennessee wins. I'll just put it that way. I mean, Tennessee's crowd led to a lot of those false start penalties, delay of game penalties. So, I'm not there yet, because I have my doubts on them, failing to beat those other top 2 teams. Let's move on to another top team that I think distinguished themselves easily as top 5, if not the number 4 team. And that's a team that was in the playoffs last year and really got their act together as far as making a statement against the first real legitimate opponent they played so far this year. And that's your Michigan Wolverines, Knish. I mean, anytime you run the football for over 400 yards in the year of our Lord, 2022, you are doing some work, and you are physically, putting your will against the other team, imposing your will. And a game that, they won by 24, and I'm here to tell you, it could have been by 44 the way they beat up Penn State. That was a very misleading first half score in that game. So, I mean, Michigan was super impressive, especially what they did at Penn State up front. What'd you see?
No, I'll tell you what surprised me most of all is, like, the defensive effort. I thought it was the Michigan defense that still, hadn't really been tested. And even going up against, Indian and Maryland, like, I thought there was some holes. I think it's a combination of both. I think Michigan is, a legitimate top 5 team. I think even though last year they beat Ohio State and made the playoff, I would say the delta between the top of college football and where Michigan is small. Even if they lose to Ohio State and they don't make it this year, I think they're closer to, that Bama, Georgia, those top of the team. Obviously, they went in, got hammered by Georgia. I think this year's Michigan team probably is closer to the top of the tier than last year. Doesn't mean they'll, make it in SEF, but and you saw the game plan that they had there and what they've done on the ground. If they're gonna go into Columbus, that's how you're gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to control the clock, run the ball, and that to me is the only way you're gonna go into Columbus and get a win. I was. You thought their offensive line might have taken a step back this year, as dominant performance as you can imagine, and the defense. That's what shocked me the most is Penn State couldn't run the ball. Penn State has some good receivers. They couldn't get anybody. I mean, they had one big explosive play, and it was the Clifford keeper, and they had nothing else going. So, yeah, I think a little bit of Penn State got exposed, but, a little bit of a great game plan, and Michigan kind of asserted themselves as a legitimate top 4 team in the country. So we'll see. I'm again, if it all lines up, that'll be one. I know we just had the Tennessee Bama game. I think the Michigan Ohio State game has a chance to equal that in terms of one of those game of the years.
Oh, no question. Yeah, the build up for that one will be good. I don't know if it'll be as high as the one in 2006, but it'll be close as we get closer and closer to that one. One other team I want to mention, I'm going to throw it out to you to see if you have any others. I thought they weren't in the best of spots considering the schedule that they played. Unique travel spot, playing in elevation. Kudos to Arkansas for going on the road, taking care of business, beating BYU, and getting some margin. Obviously, KJ Jefferson makes them an entirely different team offensively. So I thought that was an impressive win going on the road and doing what they did against probably what looks like an overrated BYU team when you start looking at their schedule. But still, I thought that was an impressive one. Anybody else really stand out to you as far as impressive performances?
We've dogged them on the show multiple times this year. And I think this probably cost me a good chunk of futures money, but the boys in Fresno, late night at home, had one of those, I call it we're still the top dog games, where they went up against the red-hot San Jose State team that got steamed, from 3 to 7, had all the love. Fresno losing to UConn, they're losing to Boise. We think, is it over for them? And they just came out and didn't really, the style they played was basically they won the trenches. They were able to run the ball. They hit Cordero a ton. They kind of played like an anti-typical Fresno game plan and saved if San Jose State wins that game, basically the division's over. They're not going. Fresno wins it. Now maybe you can buy some time till Haener gets back. And it was kind of a season-saving game for them, which as a San Jose State Futures holder was tough to stomach, but there was nothing fluky about that. They were the more physical team. And your boy Jeff Tedford dialed it up on Saturday night, and
my boys,
and was able to get a dub there. So yeah, that was kind of a season saver there for Fresno. So I'll give them some credit for the way they were able to do it.
Although as we record this, a lot of money came against Fresno this week, and I'm part of it. They're laying 13 on the road against New Mexico. I took the 13. It's down to 10.5. So we'll see. Look, the Mountain West, oh, my God, it's as wide open as any. Although I will say I think the Mountain West championship game is this weekend. Boise at Air Force. Winner of that one, in my opinion, is going to
might have a best bet on that one later in the show.
I'm gonna take a strong position, and I got some good reasoning behind it, I think. Well, we'll see. I mean, I've had great handicaps, or at least perceived to be great handicaps in the past that haven't worked so well. And we'll see. That's a topsy-turvy conference, to say the least. Moving forward, let's go to the negative side, because you like to be snarky on Twitter. Me too. And let's start in South Bend with a team that obviously dropped the ball significantly as a 17-point favorite. Notre Dame, a team that just fell short. You thought they were gaining traction with 3 straight wins, and now all the momentum's gone with a second loss this season as a significant favorite. I know there's a lot of fire Marcus Freeman. I'm here to tell you, he's probably, if you're on a totem pole or a pecking order of who's to blame for what's going on right now in year one under him, he's at the bottom for me, to be honest with you. I go to the athletic director for hiring him. I mean, it was a risky hire to begin with. I'm not there yet to say that he's not going to, be there. He might be in over his head. It looks that way so far, but Brian Kelly didn't do him any favors as far as the quarterback and wide receiver room. I tried to tell Notre Dame fans this in the offseason. They got after me because I bet under their season win total, under 9 wins. They're like, oh, no way, 10-2, 11-1. Marcus Freeman, baby. And I'm like, you have no experience at quarterback. You don't have much talent in the room. You got a first-year coach. The wide receiver room is, I said from a depth aspect, is FCS level. At least when you combine depth and talent, it's certainly bottom 10, power 5, along with the quarterback. You can't win football games consistently if you can't throw the football in college football. So it's going to be a struggle. 6-6 maybe for them. What do you think?
some
You're a
people
Notre Dame hater. I want to hear it from you.
I think some people get caught up, and Texas A&M went through this where like when the recruiting is going really, really well, people kind of then automatically assume that the team on the field is going to play. Like I know Marcus Freeman's been killing on the trail. They've got good classes together, but as you said, the team that he had this year does not have a significant amount of talent. I would be worried. This thing that is worried me, and you saw this at the. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but you saw this at the end of the Scott Frost tenure, where they basically forced him to change coordinators. They made him give up control of the offense to Mark Whipple. If Marcus Freeman thinks Tommy Rees should be fired and he's not the guy and all that, and he wants a new OC, I can see if the AD starts to get him and then forces somebody in on him, and then to me that's not the way to run a winning program. Is to be telling coach who they have to hire, who they have to fire, and that. So I would I would let the cycle happen. Give this staff another year. If you start firing, Tommy Rees, a great recruit. If you start firing coordinators, your recruiting is going to take an impact. Let them bring in a cycle of talent. Maybe you get a quarterback in the portal and that, and see what happens. So I would be, okay giving this staff another year and seeing if they can put it together. But I agree with you that they haven't really been able to fix the issues on the fly. And I know that their lack of talent, but there's obviously, even with that said, you shouldn't be losing to Marshall at home. You shouldn't be losing to Stanford at home. Like this could have been a down Notre Dame year and still got to 7-8 wins, not 5 or 6.
Agree. I will say, actually, Tommy Rees was kind of forced on Marcus Freeman. That was a hire made by the athletic director. So it'd be interesting to see how that dynamic works moving forward if they do separate, because obviously the offense is a problem. For me, Freeman, his job is to recruit defense. And so recruiting's great. Look, the defense isn't great. They don't have great talent. But when you're giving up 21 points to Ohio State, I would have a sneaky suspicion that's the lowest points Ohio State scores all year in any game. You give up 19 points to Marshall. Obviously, I take out the pick 6. 16 to Stanford. That's in 2022. That's winning football. So, I don't know what to say. The offense is a problem, but we knew it was going to be the problem when you don't have a Notre Dame's starting quarterback is out for the year. The backup is a guy that I would say at 5'11" with limited athletic ability should be starting for Bowling Green. Maybe. Maybe. That's what they're dealing with. So,
do you want? There's some rumors in Michigan land. Cade McNamara, starting quarterback for Notre. Do you want him starting in the portal? Do you want him next year?
I would take him for next year. They don't have anybody. CJ Carr's not going to come until 24. It looks like. So, here's when I start getting mad at Freeman. He's got to keep the recruiting class together. That's his job, priority number one. The team can't tank down the stretch, even though they're going to be up against Clemson and USC. They can't tank. He's got to keep the recruiting class together. And then I will start grading them. They have to do something about the quarterback room. They have to go out and get a transfer quarterback. I don't even care if it's like a Jack Cohn type. I would say McNamara is kind of like that. But they have to do that. They can't stand pat with the quarterback room in 2023. If they do, then I start saying, hey, we need to start, some people starting, maybe Tommy Rees, need to get the axe. So we'll see. Sorry, I went off on a tangent on my team. It kind of sucks. But let's talk about some other teams that failed to live up to billing this past week. Who stood out to you?
You can take that cowbell and throw it out the freaking window there, because I tell you what, Mike Leach, when he's going up against in a spot where he's going up against it just feels like in the SEC there's enough talent and enough competent defensive coordinators where that scheme can be diagnosed properly. And you saw this when he was at Wazoo, when they played Washington every year, and they just ate his lunch every single year. They were able to, no matter who he had, no matter how good of a record when they're going up against Cal and Arizona, and they're able to throw it around for it. But in the SEC, when you're going up against the talent level and the consistent defense, like this scheme, I don't love it. And that's a bad loss. It's a bad loss. It's a Kentucky. They didn't do anything. Will Levis wasn't 100%. They basically just ran this very conservative, hand it off, run for 3 yards of carry, and ground down. And it's a game that misses. It was there for them to take control of the whole time, and they couldn't do it. And that's exactly how they lost to LSU, where they couldn't finish drives. They couldn't sustain anything. They couldn't build on a lead. And then at the very end, you get a turnover, you lose to LSU. Same thing happens here. They should have been up multiple scores. They don't convert. they fall apart at the end because the defense finally gives out. Another bad loss to a team that they're better than. This is why I'm.
Let's tell the people really why you're mad. It's a Kentucky season win total. You wanted another loss. Right?
We should have had it in the bank. If they lose that game, they got to play Georgia, and then Joey K doesn't have to worry about losing his lunch. And now, of course, they win that game. Now I'm sweating it again. Just another trash loss for a system that I don't believe in Mike Leach. I know people like the media loves him, and I don't believe him. I don't think he belongs in the SEC. I think he's a guy who should be, at some random Pac-12 school or a G5, not at Mississippi State. I don't think you can consistently win with that system.
Where you at? We'll get to this week's game, Mississippi State. Where you at on that one? I want to lay it with Bama. I see 20.5, Westgate, South Point. After we get off the show, I'll probably bet those.
I don't. It's a thing where like. This is, again, they're not going to move the ball on Bama. That's just a Saban. I mean, he's had that diagnosed for the, like, so I would agree with you. It would be the number now I was hoping to get, under
it's
2021. Yeah, it's definitely not cheap, but I don't, like, they don't make they literally, there's no explosiveness in the offense whatsoever. It's like we have to dink and dunk all the way down the field. We can't run the ball in the red zone. They can't score points. So it's just like they can't convert anything unless they're playing. So, yeah, against any reasonable defense, it's just it's trash. I don't know why they brought in Leach in the first place, and it's only reinforcing it.
I'll give you another team that really underperformed, not too far in your neck of the woods. I couldn't believe it. Just pathetic, feeble. Wisconsin losing to Michigan State. I mean, I felt good early in the game, and then, I mean, maybe Michigan State, when you look at it, got some guys healthy. Reed at wide receiver. Coleman stepped up. The Carr at tight end. And maybe they're just getting a little bit healthier compared to what they were. But my goodness, Wisconsin, just when I thought they had some momentum and Jim Leonard might get the permanent gig, they lose outright as a touchdown favorite. So big thumbs down for me. And it was legitimate. I don't think it was fluky, to be honest with you. I thought Michigan State was clearly the better team there. So kudos for Michigan State getting a win, and Wisconsin, big thumbs down. Another thumbs down for me is California losing to Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Off a bye, 2-touchdown plus favorite. Losing to that Colorado outfit. Now, maybe Colorado's a little bit better with an interim coach. I mean, Carl Durrell wasn't, I would say, the sharpest tool in the shed. And now with an interim coach, who I really don't like either, Mike Sanford Jr., the offensive coordinator, maybe there's a little bit of life there, but still no excuse for California to lose that game against a Colorado team that I had in my power rankings, bottom 10 in the country. I'm not saying bottom 10 Power 5. I'm talking including the group of 5. They were bottom 10 in my power rankings. So that was a bad look there. Anybody else with a bad look for you?
I've got, again, it's one that I don't know if I can say is that surprising, but Florida giving up 45 to LSU. That's one where you just when you think Brian Kelly's going to die, I give it to him. I got to give it to him. The man knows how to run a football program and keep it. And just when you think the wheels are going to fall off there, he's able to. And that is a fascinating game to me this week because it's two teams that I think are a bit fraudulent on both sides of it. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on that one. But yeah, that's a rough loss for Florida, giving up 45 to that LSU offense. And it's, Billy Napier, I would say Napier is in the, I put him in this Marcus Freeman category of, it had some rough losses, definitely needs to upgrade the talent, didn't come into, a stock room there, but is at a place where they don't have a ton of patience. They're not going to wait 3-4 years for Florida to come back. So, we'll see there, but that is not especially the way it played out. Florida they need a lot of players, and that's going to be, they need skill players, they need players on defense, and that's going to take a few years.
A lot of first-year coaches struggling a little bit. I mean, Cristobal, Miami, Venables, Oklahoma, Napier, Florida, Freeman, Notre Dame. Although I find Freeman taking the most heat, I find that intriguing. We won't go down that, but I
was going to say, I think we can't say it on the show, but I think we would know the reason for that.
Yeah, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah,
it's wow. Not that I'm surprised considering this country, but
but
whatever.
yeah.
Moving along, you teased it. Let's just start with the biggest games of the week. One of them is that 3:30 CBS game. We'll talk Brian Kelly, LSU, Ole Miss. I hate Brian Kelly, you know that. But you're right. He knows how to win football games. Not big games, but football games, period. That was a must-win for him. And when he needs a must-win against a team that he can beat, not a top 10 team, but a team he can beat, he usually does it. We'll see this week. I actually bet them. I thought they should have been a slight favorite, not a slight underdog. It's flipped to them being favored, so I still lean that way as far as LSU. I do agree with you. I think Ole Miss is a little fraudulent. Why? They haven't played really anybody yet, and now that's a big road game for them. Defense was leaky. I thought they could have put the clamps on Auburn last week. They didn't. They fooled around and messed around with that game. Didn't cover depending on what spread you got.
Yep.
So I actually think situationally, I wouldn't be a bit surprised LSU wins this game. So that's where my lean is here at LSU. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was some look ahead stuff that LSU, 3.5, 4.5 and stuff. I wouldn't be
favorite or dog.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be inclined now that they're small favorites, but I agree. That is such a Lane Kiffin against Auburn where they have multiple chances to just put them away and run them off the field, and the defense is giving up plays, and Robbie Ashford's running around, and it feels so I don't know, lackadaisical under Lane Kiffin where they don't have that, the killer instinct or a team's ability to put teams away. The defense is a little soft. They weren't able to consistently run the ball when they needed to. So, yeah, I think it's a very, they're able to score points in bunches and have some flat plays. But, I agree with you that in the comments that, Ole Miss, 300, yes. Yeah, it was unfathomable. That Tanks Bigsby, literally, he has performances of 20 yards, 30 yards. And then they go up in a game where Auburn is missing multiple old linemen and looks like their season's going off the rails and just run it over Ole Miss all day. So underwhelming performance to me. And yeah, this could be a maybe just Ole Miss is not that good and kind of exposed as maybe LSU's trends up here. But I don't have a position on this one. Just a little conflicted of two teams that I'm not really buying into.
I didn't want to bring it up, but Holt in the chat brings up the Kent State collapse being bad. Yeah, I fully know that because I was on Kent State. That was one where I kind of counted a winner. They're up 3 touchdowns. When you're getting more than a touchdown and you're up 3 touchdowns, you think you're safe. You're not, obviously. More on the MAC in a little bit, though. I got a sneaky best bet that I literally found before the show, just doing a little, the deep diving into some box scores that I think we'll get some value there. Let's move along to another big game. ACC, you have a top 15 Syracuse team, undefeated this late in the season for the first time since 1987. Were you even born yet, Knish, in 87?
That was the year of Knish. That was the birth year, baby. That was when Joey K landed on the great green earth.
There you go. They're on the road playing at Clemson. Clemson's laying a big number here, 13.5. I can tell you, I think it closes 14, to be honest with you. So a lot of my bets, when I make 50 bets on a Sunday morning, obviously a lot of it's power ratings, maybe a few situational spots, but overwhelming amount, especially when I'm betting favorites around key numbers. It's just, where do I expect the market to move? Can I play back later in the week? I'll take a position now on a relatively soft number. So that's what I did here. Certainly lean Clemson. I don't think Syracuse played really anybody yet. Obviously, they benefited from playing a backup quarterback last week in NC State. The one worry I do have is Clemson has been through I don't know if you call the ACC a gauntlet, but I mean, when you look at who they played the last, 3 weeks or so, Wake Forest, NC State, at Florida State, now playing Syracuse. And I'm here to tell you, this isn't a Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson type Clemson team. I know they're unbeaten, but as far as my power ratings, I even have a Michigan ahead of them. I think Michigan would be favored over a neutral. So while they're unbeaten, I don't know if this is a playoff contender, not necessarily a national title contender. I'm not sure that Clemson's good enough to win a playoff game. So lean here for Clemson, just playing numbers. I made it 14. What say you?
Yeah, I played some 12.5. That was out there yesterday, earlier today. I know there was obviously a sharp service that played it today. It got to 14, and then there was some immediate resistance there at 14. So you had some immediate buyback. So obviously some differing opinions in the market. I agree. I still think under 14 is a play. I'd love if there's a 13 out there to play that. I thought 12.5 was cheap. I don't know how Syracuse moves. I really am not a fan of the Syracuse offense. I think in spots that they'll be able to, there's certain teams in the ACC that they can, pound the rock on and move it around. This is not one of them. It's not a quarterback who I'm really in love with, Garrett Schrader. I don't think the Syracuse wide receiver room is very good. They really need to be able to run the ball to have success. And I don't think they're going to be able to do it here whatsoever. And then on the other side, again, as you said, it's not the greatest Clemson offense in the world, but has been improving throughout the year. I think it's much better now than it was, especially last year, and much even better than it was early in the season. Maybe last year they're not able to kind of come out of that, the early hole versus Florida State and then put up a 30 spot against a team that has more defensive talent than Syracuse has. So, I think Clemson should, because they did kind of mess around there at the end of the last week, and it looked a lot closer at the end of it than the game truly was. So I think Clemson under 14 is good. I just don't think Syracuse matches they're talent wise and what Syracuse needs to do to be able to win games and cover. I don't think they're able to do it. It's one where just the Clemson D-line should dominate everything Syracuse wants to do here. So anything under 14 would be a Clemson play for me.
A couple of good questions in the chat. Brendan Smith, Q's team total under. Yeah, I would certainly lean that way. Obviously, they're not. A lot of those aren't up yet, but at least at a majority of the books. But I would lean that way. There, I could see that. Stephen Robinson talking about Clemson giving up late touchdowns. Yeah, I could see that, but there's been some inconsistencies. We mentioned, the Clemson team overall. I'm actually a little bit concerned with some of the defensive breakdowns that we did not see under former Brent Venables defensive coordinator. So that does have me a little worried. Another worry for me, if you follow this series, at least since Dino Babers has come over, he's kind of been not necessarily a kryptonite, but there's been a lot of close games between Syracuse and Clemson the last 5-6 years, including last year. I mean, Clemson played a lot of close games, but I mean, they have beaten Clemson. I think it was 2017 or 18 outright. There's been some other close matchups between these two teams. So that has me preventing Clemson from being best bet material there. You got any final thoughts on the game before we move on to another one?
No, you make a good point there with it's hard to even kind of fathom why or how Syracuse, I like to have a causation if I'm saying, but it has been one of the, I don't know, I can't literally put it in exactly what Syracuse does that they've played some close games there, but I agree with that. And to Steven's point in the chat, I think the Clemson, that will affect them in games where they're going up against better passing off, or potentially in playoff games if they play in Ohio State. Or that's where the Clemson secondary, as you mentioned, that has breakdowns, that is playing a lot of younger guys, that I don't think has elite coverage guys. That to me is where the more come into play. In this game, though, versus Syracuse passing offense, I don't think it's as much of a concern. It'll be a concern in some games that down the road where Clemson, we want to fade them. In this game, Syracuse doesn't really play that kind of ball and have that kind of passing offense. So it would be lesser a concern for me this week than it would be in future games.
Excellent point there, Knish. Not that you don't always make excellent points, but I thought that was pretty sharp there. So, me, I'll give you, constructive criticism, but I'll give you praise when you deserve it. And obviously, you've been carrying the show when it comes to best bets this year. Let's welcome back a conference to big-time college football with, it seems like, consistent big games week after week. We've missed you for the last 5-6 years, but another big one this week in the Pac-12, a pair of top 10 teams, at least in the AP Bowl rankings. Oregon hosting UCLA, Chip Kelly, another trip back to his former stomping grounds there in Eugene. I am not, I did bet over 69.5. I'm not a big guy that's betting, overs early in the week, but Oregon offensively has been going at a rapid pace. ever since the debacle against Georgia. I mean, look at some of their offensive output numbers. It's been incredible. Bo Nix, we haven't seen bad Bo Nix since the Georgia game for obvious reasons. And on the other side of the ball, I easily could see UCLA getting well into the 30s here. I just thought, hell, this total is going to close. I mean, I would even say it closes higher than it is now at 70.5. In fact, I think 72.5, 73 is probably the final landing spot for this total. So I'm leaning over here. I got nothing on the side. What say you?
So there was one. It was 3 a.m. I'm a late night owl, and there was one place that ended up popping to 7. And I was like, oh, am I gonna gonna go downtown and play? And I didn't do it. And of course, no 7s out there at the moment. 7 was my buy point on UCLA. I thought that was getting a bit rich. I had this more around 4.5. So I'll probably play a 6.5 small. If I'm going to watch the market on this one, I think you'll eventually see some. I agree with Chris. If I see a 7 again at a place I can get down at, I'll bet some 7. But again, we'll see if the market takes it there. I think at some point there'll be some buyback here on UCLA. I don't mind the overplay there. Oregon has played this. They played Georgia. Obviously, the scoreboard says they get blown out, but they were more competitive in that game than it ends up. And then they've kind of played this run of like total cupcakes here and just been blasting them. Whereas UCLA, on the other hand, has played some of the better teams in the Pac-12 and beat them all. So I'm fascinated by this one. And as you said, that USC Utah game, I know they didn't get the love as much as the Bama Tennessee game, but that was a fantastic game. That was some great Pac-12. It's like, kids are crying on the field with Utah after that one, and they're like, I remember the Brian who says, God, this is why I love college football. That was it. I just love watching USC's offense too. Like, I know people don't like Lincoln, but it is a fun offense to watch. Yeah. So, but yeah, in this one, again, it would be a UCLA at 7 for me. I'm a little conflicted on exactly how, if Oregon's this good. But I feel like UCLA's proved it here, and if I can get him with a touchdown, it seems a little inflated to where I'm at, because I've been bumping UCLA up. So yeah, that would be the only play for me at current if it can get there.
All right, fair enough there. And again, like you mentioned, I'm just glad to see, the Pac-12 being exciting again. You mentioned the USC-Utah game. It was an unbelievable game. And the thing that I love about college football is the emotion. You see the final scene there in Salt Lake, obviously in Knoxville. Look, the NFL, the quality of the game is so much better. But, man, when it comes to an atmosphere, the emotions, the tradition, the pageantry, my goodness, love college football. I like winning no more, to be honest. Speaking of, I'll tell you what, a lot of people are betting this one already, like they're going to know the final score. Next matchup, ranked on rank 1, we got Texas at Oklahoma State. Texas, one of the biggest line movers so far this week. They're up to 6.5 in a few spots, favored on the road. It's the second consecutive week we've seen money come in big time against Oklahoma State, even though they covered most numbers last week, especially if you're betting that game late in the week. And they blew a big lead against TCU. I understand the Texas money. Did not get to was it the Knish betting syndicate that took the one at Circa? I didn't get it. I hit. There's one of those instances where I hit -1. All right, I'll take it. And it was like line has moved to 3.5, and I'm like, 3.5, no. But hell, hindsight's 2020. I should have bet the lead to 3.5 at that point. But I'm intrigued on your take on this one. I'm not to the window yet, either side or total on this one, even with a big line move.
I was able to fill some look aheads that were like around, Texas, a little bit of pick. I was able to get some 2.5.
Holy cow.
However, this has now, reached the point where I agree. Like, to me, it was one where if it crossed 3, I was out on it.
Yep.
And now it's got up to, like 6.5, 7. I'm like, gee, it's hard for me. I know some people, even some modeling guys I work with, that were still betting Texas at the 4. Each one to me, like I thought I was part. And again, I was on TCU last week. Part of the early move there. Thought even the move over 3 last week was fine, but Oklahoma State, they probably should have won that game. Like it was where, we kind of talked about on the show last week how Gundy, turtles a little bit, and that's what he did. And I thought it cost them the game there. And this is what don't think Texas is a touchdown better than Oklahoma State. And I know this is someone that like doesn't mind fading Oklahoma State. Has faded them the last week. I again was on some of the early tech, but now getting up to this would be another one like similar. I feel better about. I like the UCLA to touchdown better, but if this is 7, I think just numbers play. You got to buy some Oklahoma State.
I totally agree.
At home, it's too much respect for me. To a Texas team that again, I figured you get a little bit of a letdown. Iowa State they played great as a big dog, but they really struggled last week. And there was a point in that game where they probably should have lost.
Absolutely, they should have lost.
So to now be getting steamed up to a touchdown on the road here versus a Pokes offense, that's real deal. So I mean they can put up like if you want to question the defense, fine, but they have playmakers. And they've been doing it against everybody. So, I think at 7, it's a bye. I am definitely surprised it's gotten up this high.
Agree. 7, definitely a bye for me. I even lean that way at 6.5 at the current number. I was a guy that bet against Texas last week. I have Texas like 6 in my power rating, so it's not like I'm anti-Texas. I see it with them, but and last week was a clear letdown spot for the Longhorns in that game. Oklahoma State, I get it. I get why the modelers don't like Oklahoma State. You look at them statistically. I mean, each of the last 3 weeks have not been good. Even the blown lead, they got significantly outgained against TCU in that game. But I don't know. Gundy's that type of coach that can rally the troops, and he'll probably play into this, the fact that they're getting a touchdown at home in front of the crowd. So, 6.5 lean, 7, it's a bye in that one. One more I want to talk about is Kansas State against TCU. Let's keep it in the Big 12. This is one I did take a position on. And I'm anxious to hear you because I know modelers are going to love TCU. Here's what I don't like. I don't like the spot for TCU at all. Blowout win over Oklahoma. To the wire win against Kansas that I actually wasn't impressed that much with TCU in that game, especially against a backup quarterback in the second half. They go multiple overtimes last week against Oklahoma State. Look, they have surprised. They have impressed. I've upgraded TCU significantly in my power ratings, but they are not Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia, and I don't think they have the depth to continue week after week to come up and play a type effort type of games. And I think, I get it that Kansas State's going to probably, I could see the other side of it. Kansas State's going to have to score to keep up, but I think they can slog this game down a little bit. Kansas State. And look, hell, if they got to score, they did it against Oklahoma and went into Norman and won that game. I get it. Oklahoma's not very good, but they want to shoot out there. So I think Kansas State off a bye, anything above 3, that's worth it for me. What say you?
Yeah, I was in on some 5, some 4.5. I don't think
where's the steak book at? I mean, is this
I
another one?
I don't know. Where do we find it? You can go there must be some. I don't know who sent these lines in Canada, but I don't know if they've ever watched college football before. But yeah, I like. You know what? I agree with you. Even at 3.5, I'd still that would be the last buy point for me. But I don't think this TCU defense is any good. Like that. Like you look at just their like who they've gone up against and they're giving up a ton of yards versus Kansas, a ton of yards and points for Oklahoma State. Dylan Gabriel went down, so I think that kind of helped that, basically kept Oklahoma at bay there, or they getting over SMU. I mean, it's every game they've played a real opponent. They're just giving, and this is another one where Kansas State, they're going to be able to eat on the ground. Like they're just, and that's a matchup where, if you're the team that can impose your will, this is the Jim Harbaugh playbook for the last time he's been in college football, where you can impose your will on the ground and run it on the other team. Like it makes it difficult on the other team if you're controlling the game. It's still something in football where if you can run the ball and control the game on the ground, it's tough to lose. I think Kansas State can do that. And I agree with you. Like you talk about the run of teams that TCU's on. So yeah, 3.5 or better for me is Kansas State. I've got some TCU futures here that are probably if they win this, they're pretty much locked into the conference title game. So I wouldn't mind a Horned Frog. You're
going to go that route already? You're locked in the Big 12 when there are no
I'm saying if they beat Kansas State here, they're going to the title game. Right. But unfortunately,
Sonny Dykes, he's got a good track record of closing out seasons real strong.
Yeah, last Saturday I was cursing his name for most of the game, but yeah, I agree with you. Kansas State here, 3 or better, lock it in as a best bet for the show.
Oh, wow. Best bet. I like it. I agree. That's a double best bet there. I was waiting for you to step up there.
Oh yeah, I'm a hit man.
Well, no,
I hate
you got the
some
best
of these.
bet
I know where
record. You're carrying the show. I mean, I'm dragging the show down, so that makes me feel good that we have some agreement there on that best bet. Any other, before we get to best bets, any other lines standing out to you? I'm going to give you one. How is Notre Dame laying 20? I mean, they're getting steamed right now as we're doing the show, 25.5 with Circa. Can you lay that kind of number with this offense? They can't throw the football, folks. I don't know. I don't have a good track record in Notre Dame games this year, so I can tell you I bet in UNLV. I'm not going to make it a best bet for the show, but how can you lay that many points with this team? Well, what say you on this game?
I'll tell you, this was one I had on the radar for Circa when it was opening up, and I expected nobody loves the Mountain West as much as Joe Gay, and I'm up late, to the wee hours of the morning watching all the Mountain West, and UNLV is a team that really they've been beset by injuries. It's a team that I thought could have competed for the Mountain West early in the year. Ton of injuries, level of plays really fallen off, got smoked by Air Force, but I thought with the Notre Dame loss, then I'm like, okay, I'm looking for, a cheap Notre Dame number, and was expecting, to lay it here as like, I had an eye on 18, 21, 24, 24 and a half. No, thank you. So yeah, it would be and again, this is one where I came into the week looking to take a Notre Dame position here at a discount, and we didn't get a discount whatsoever. If anything, I think this is, I agree with you that too. And I know some people have been laying the 24s, but yeah, they're way outmatched in the trenches. I agree with you. It's going to be tough to. I'm not sure how significant Doug Brumfield's injury was. So keep an eye on that. If Brumfield is back, I don't know how long term it was. If he's back, definitely a buy on UNLV. If not, it'll probably be a pass for me. But I can't hate on you for taking the points at this number, because it came just significantly higher than I thought it was going to open up.
I agree. I was in a similar spot. I was like, at 20, I'll lay with Notre Dame.
Yeah.
When I saw 24, I was like, oof, I'll just take UNLV. And then it seemed against me. So I got some negative expectation bet there. Another line I just want to throw out there. It shows you how two fronts. It tells you just how bad Iowa is, but how good Ohio State is.
Hit you with this
29 against a team that gives up 10 points per game. So, and especially Jackson Smith and the Jigba's back. Travion Henderson's back after a bye. If they cover that number against Iowa's defense, that's saying something. I just thought that line stood out. And I didn't bet it. I thought 28, 29 is very fair. So I actually don't expect to see too much line movement there. Did you bet this one at all?
I bet some 28 to minus 28. I don't know how I like it. The Iowa offense now, like, we've seen enough data points where I don't know how they just can't move. You need almost like flukish some turnovers and stuff, and the defense is going to eventually break. I don't know how they move the football against anybody with, a respect. Ohio State defense, as we said, it's not elite, but it's better this year. And it's just one where, like, there's nothing they do well whatsoever on offense. They can't run the ball. They don't have any playmakers at receiver. Like, the quarterback can't move. And you've seen it. They're the bottom 10 rushing and passing team. So for one, it might be one of those where, you're getting some punts back and forth. It takes a while for Ohio State to get there. But I would need, I was, asking myself, what do I really need to back Iowa in this game? It'd be at least 31.5. But before I could even talk myself into a Hawkeyes play. So yeah, I thought, again, I thought 28 was gonna go up a little bit. Was a little. It was
27 to open our circuit. Again, somebody beat me to it.
Yep. And see, I know that was I saw that 28-7 flash for a minute, but I can't put a game script together where Iowa's able to. I mean, you figure they need 17 to cover this number, maybe. And I'm just not sure.
Really? Then you gotta like the over.
I would bet the over. I haven't bet it yet, but but the problem is, like, could I see 38-7? Yes.
Yeah, you could.
So it's tough where if I'm going to need an over, I might need 45 from Ohio State. So Yeah, I'm not. I think Iowa is just brutal at this point. Even though the defenses play, they haven't gone up against this type of attack. They went up, the Michigan defense, and
Michigan covered
Michigan,
that game though.
and they covered that game. And late in that game, the fourth quarter, they basically went into full on, like, they knew Iowa couldn't drive the field on them. They just went into handed off 3 times in punt mode. So I don't think Ohio State's really wired that. They're not really wired that way. So especially in like this in the shoe. So yeah, I think the Hawkeyes get run out here.
Couple other things I want to mention before we get to best bets. Obviously, the theme the last 3-4 weeks have been major quarterback injuries. I want to mention a couple. The game I'm keeping an eye on, Penn State, Minnesota. I mentioned it earlier in the broadcast. Not for both teams. Tanner Morgan obviously got KO'd in last week's game. Sean Clifford couldn't finish the game. I kind of want to bet Penn State, believe it or not, in the game. It is a whiteout. I know everyone's used to whiteouts being only against Michigan and Ohio State. This one's that rare one against Minnesota. Minnesota's starting a backup quarterback in his first career start on the road at night in a whiteout. I don't think that's an ideal situation, to say the least. So I'm going to lean Penn State, but I need further clarification. Also, maybe lean under. I mean, if Penn State ends up starting a backup quarterback, although that Alar kid, probably has a higher talent level than Sean Clifford, who's 28 years old and still, can't do it against high school, basically 18-year-old kids for some reason. The same with Tanner Morgan. He sucked before he got KO'd in that game anyway. So under and Penn State for me there. Another sneaky one, because no one watches West Coast games late at night. Utah State, if you're wondering why they're getting more than a field goal against Wyoming, they were down to a 4-string quarterback at the end of last week's game. They're obviously Logan Bonner's already out for the year. Yeah. Their backup, Legat, who's been playing, he's been better than Bonner, to say the least. He got KO'd. Lehi Williams, the Wyoming transfer, got KO'd in the game, and they were down to like a freshman. So that's one at least to keep an eye on. I'm not on that game yet. Now, Liberty, if Charlie Brewer comes back, maybe they're worth it. But right now, I don't see how they stay within the number if it's that Jonathan Bennett kid, a third stringer, because Salters had surgery. Their backup that I actually thought was better than Charlie Brewer. That's a situation to keep an eye out on. And one more is escaping me. Tunga Bailoa for Maryland. I don't think he plays. If it gets to 14, I'll probably take North. I'll take 2 touchdowns with a good Northwestern defense against a backup quarterback. Anything that I'm missing?
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't have this confirmed, but paying attention to the late night stuff, I think Lega's got a concussion, and I'm just of the assumption now. If you get a concussion in today's football, you're going to miss a week. Like in today's climate in 2022, there's not many times where guys are coming back the week after they get one. So I'm going to assume he's out. The Levi Williams, it was an ankle. So yeah, I agree with you. I was kind of waiting for some updates there, but I think Wyoming would be the side for me. Even if Williams was able to go with the ankle. He's not a very good quarterback to begin with. So, Wyoming would be the lean there. And I agree with that. You know what? Pat's Cats is kind of like the Big Ten Matt Campbell here. If you can get a 14 with him against a backup QB, I agree with you. I think he's one that they just have a similar. Also, Maryland, I had some higher expectations after and it's cost me some money. It cost me some money against Purdue. They've underwhelmed relative to what I thought they could be after the Michigan game when they were really competitive. So, now if they're getting a backup quarterback, if that hits 14 and then no Tagovailoa, that'd be a buy as well.
That's a good transition into best bets, because I'm going to talk about a past quarterback injury that's offering some value here. I'm not sure that people dive into this stuff, even though it's Monday morning. You'd think the market would react appropriately. I don't think they are yet. Rocky Lombardi came back last week for Northern Illinois, a team that was kind of dead in the water for several games, at least, losing them. I don't think they were putting up terrible performances, and some losses there. But he was out 3-4 games since the Vanderbilt game, comes back last week, very solid. And they blow out Eastern Michigan, even though the whole world seemed to be betting Eastern Michigan on game day. That money turned out to be wrong. And another play that I like here, at least as far as the handicap in this game, is I want to fade Ohio. The last 3 games for Ohio, the scoreboard has not matched the box score for them. And it's all been in a positive as far as Ohio's final score looking better than what the box score said. It started with a Kent State game. They give up 736 yards, and somehow the game goes to overtime. Against, last week against Western Michigan, they forced 6 turnovers. They're plus 8 turnovers the last 3 games. This is a team that, even the Akron game was close yardage-wise in a game that they, the scoreboard said they blew out Akron. So I think Northern Illinois, I know I'm not a big road favorite guy, but I'm going to lay it 2.5. I think it closes 3 when more word gets out that Lombardi's back for Northern Illinois. That signifies value. Give me the Huskies. What say you here?
Yeah, first, did you see how that played out too? Because they announced the other QB is the starter, and then he gets the first snap and then they sub Lombardi in and he plays the whole game and plays fantastic.
Yep.
It was like a legend, Mac corruption here. Now, mind you, there's nobody that no Mac report, nobody covers any of these Mac teams. So they got one intern on staff, remote Illinois that covers the entire section for the Mac. So it's hard to get good info, but. That was an all-time ruse of we're not starting Lombardi and he's backing up. Oh, one play in, we're going to him and he plays great. So I agree with you. I know some guys that bet Illinois early.
The board's lined up right now. I love it.
I agree with you that I'm gonna play a little myself here. So I got no qualms with that. It's definitely short if Lombardi plays. So. Nothing wrong with hey, I'm on board with you there with the Northern Illinois play.
Yeah, and just to show you that I don't think the market's fully grasping the handicap. This opened the total 57.5. That's my favorite bet of the week. And when that opened up, it's moved 8 points. So obviously the totals reacted to, hey, Lombardi's back. Northern Illinois' offense can be better than expected. I just don't think the side has appropriately reacted yet. Not that I think he's worth 6 points to the spread, but he's worth a few points. More than what's being signified here in this game. And then again, it's, I think, a fade Ohio spot. So that's number one best bet for me. What's your you already gave one. You gave out Kansas State. What's your second best bet?
Well, I think based off what you said earlier in that we might have a dual one here. We're going back to the Mountain West. And either we're going to have a great head-to-head or it's going to be a double best bet. I'm taking Boise State. This is one that it opened up. I couldn't believe this opened up. Some of the look-aheads were around pick and stuff like that. Opens up 4. There was some 4.5 yesterday. I think this is giving way too much respect to an Air Force team that I know they hammered UNLV. This is the best, and a Boise State, and I know they've regressed. It's not your older brother, your uncle's Boise State that was beating Oklahoma, but they have the best defensive line in front seven in the Mountain West, and it's not close. It's not even close. That's the one thing they can still hang their hat on is defensive line. They can still control the trenches. They beat the hell out of Fresno, and Fresno just did that to San Jose State. And I think they've played the option, relatively. I mean, there's obviously these two teams go every year. They've had a little bit of a break here to get ready for it. And Bachmeier transfers, and I'll tell you, I think that was enough. I think that's exactly what needed to happen because I like Green's a little bit more mobile. I think he gives Air Force some more problems. And it just, instead of doing this, QB roulette crap and Bachmeier struggling, I think it gives him a little bit more of an identity. And he played, well in the small sample without him so far. So Boise at 3.5, it could lock in a best bet for me. I played 4.5. I'm still fine with 3.5. I just think that there's this to me should be a round pick. I don't think Air Force, smacking a UNLV team that has nobody on defense and is dealing with a ton of injuries changes their mindset. That it's been an Air Force team that I thought coming into the year could be, an elite, and they were really underwhelmed for the majority of the year before, blowing out UNLV. Now they're playing the best defense they're going to face all year in the Mountain West. And I'll take over a field goal in a, going to be a grinder, triple option type game. So
I couldn't agree more. I think Boise State's the best bet on the board, the entire board at 3.5. I played it already.
Yep.
I love it for a lot of the reasons you said. I'm looking, obviously, the numbers are tighter this time of year. So I am looking for teams that, significantly change their dynamic. Boise State, I think, is example, Exhibit A. Market says their offensive coordinator gets fired, that there's, multiple year starting quarterback transfers out. Oh, bad. It's opposite. It's been great. They've upgraded a quarterback. They got a kid Green, 6'6", 215, gives him a totally different dynamic. He looks like, kind of like a Kaepernick at quarterback for him. And Boise State hasn't had that, obviously, that kind of talent like that at quarterback in several years. On top of it, they upgraded offensive coordinator. You know who's calling plays for him right now? Dirk Cutter, the former Boise coach, Arizona State, head coach of Tampa Bay. I get it. He may be flamed out in the NFL. But we're talking Boise. There's a big difference in the NFL and Boise State. And he's kind of giving them some stability on the offensive side of the ball. Keep in mind, they got a young second-year head coach, Avalos, no head coaching experience. He's a defensive-minded coach. So Cutter on the offense side of the ball, being a veteran offensive guy, perfect dynamic. The market's not grasping this. They hammered San Diego State in the second half. I get it. San Diego State sucks offensively, but they don't suck defensively.
Yep.
And Boise State went up and down the field on them. And they also hammered Fresno State. You say Fresno State sucks. Well, ask San Jose State how bad Fresno State is. So I think Boise State now is what we thought coming into this season. They're the best team in the Mountain West. And I like the dynamic there. You're right. Air Force, biggest bet I made all offseason was over their win total. And I'm going to have to sweat that MFer out. I mean, they've already lost twice as a double-digit favorite outright. And I think, forget Boise State plus 3.5. I think they win the game, to be honest with you. So, and I like, obviously, an extra week to prep for the option in the middle of the season. So, Boise State for me, Knish. You got another one?
And you look at this Air Force body of work, this is going to be the best team they've played by a significant margin. I mean, it's FCS, Colorado, Wyoming, Nevada, Navy, Utah State. They lost, as you said, Utah State, and then UNLV beat up UNLV. So this is going from, where you haven't, I look at it as very similar to the Wyoming game, which they lost. This is a team, Boise State, that obviously goes up against this scheme every year, extra week to prepare, and has significantly better front seven than what Wyoming's trotting out there. And Utah State was able to run all over Air Force. It's an Air Force team to me I expected a lot more out of. And when you've talked about the competition level they've faced, it's bottom basement FBS every single week so far. And now you got the Broncos coming in with all the revamps that you mentioned. So yeah, I agree. I think Boise wins outright. But getting over a field goal here is a beauty. So yeah, I think that is the hit the books combo best bet of the week.
Definitely. I'll get to a quick question. Baylor quarterback, I forgot to mention. I'm not sure if he plays. Again, it might be another concussion type situation.
I agree. I bet Kansas
they're
already.
Be very cautious, so I'm not sure he plays. I will tell you, I like the backup. He played well against West Virginia. I watched him in the spring game. Kid's very talented. He was a high 4-star kid, one of their highest rated kids that they've ever had. So not that I'm saying bet Baylor, but I'm waiting for the market. Here's what I'm waiting, because the market can be so stupid. Like, it's already, maybe you can confirm this, but I see it all the time. Like, it's already built into the number that the quarterback isn't going to play. Then it goes on the Don Best screen, and then you see idiots betting into it like it isn't already factored into the price of the game. So here's what I'm going to do with the Baylor-Kansas game. I'm going to wait for Shapen to be out and the line to get driven down a few more points, and I'll take Baylor. I kind of agree with the under money maybe a little bit. I don't know. It's tough betting unders with Kansas right now because I don't think their backup quarterback is that big of a downgrade over what they had. So I'm going to lay back on that underplay right now.
No, I agree. You know what? As far as I was expecting the Kansas offense, like, they were still going at Oklahoma, like, late in that game, even though their defense was getting shredded. Like, they're still coming back. Like, and there was a chance there where they were going to get inside the number late there. That was one of the bigger sharp moves of the week last week, and they were right there to cover that one. So yeah, no, I agree. And that's one of those things, like, you'll see a Don Best notification, like the line's already moved, like it's already shaped into place. Yeah. Notification blows up. Some people still bet it. So I agree. This definitely, if shipping goes out, I think goes under a touchdown. So yeah, if you want some, you're out there and you want to lay Baylor, I think because it's the same thing we talked about with Legis for Utah State. Concussion, I don't think you're coming back within a week. So I believe he was knocked out. I believe that was a legitimate concussion because he took a nasty hit there. So I would highly doubt he plays in this one. And I think once it's announced, you'll see the Kansas money roll in.
Unless you got a final best bet, I'm going to close the show with this marquee Sun Belt matchup. You got another best bet?
You know what? It's on the same day, though. I know where you're going with the Sun Belt, but before that,
all right,
I'm going to, and you know what? I'll wait to, if Sims is another quarterback one where I think he's going to play. By all accounts, I think it was minor. He did exit at the end of the overtime game they played with Duke. I like the Yellow Jackets here getting, now that it's down to 3. I just think we've talked about on the show multiple weeks. I hate Virginia. I think they're absolutely miserable. I don't know if the bottom is in on them yet. If Sims plays for Georgia Tech, I like laying 3 there. However, you definitely want him out because there's a significant. That's when we talked about it's a significant downgrade for Georgia Tech if he can't go. So that's one I'm going to monitor all week up until game time. I think he's good to go. There was some message board stuff. He just had a little bit of a thigh bruise or something. He walked off the field fine. So I think he's playing, but want to get that confirmation. And Georgia Tech will then be my final best bet of the week.
I might slight disagreement there, but I'm not gonna. I mean, I get it. I took 4.5 of Virginia. So again, numbers, not teams, folks. I mean, so 3. I'm not really interested. What I am interested in,
now go to the game of this. Is it bigger than Tennessee and Bama for some people?
Yeah, I mean, the winner's going to win the West Division in the Sun Belt, and there was a lot of juicy future prices in the Sun Belt, particularly West teams, which we thought was going to be a lot more wide open than the market was pricing at, because we thought Louisiana was going to take a major step back. The team that's represented the West Division several years in a row out of the Sun Belt, and a big one. On a weekday night, Thursday night, Troy at South Alabama. South Alabama favored by 3. Fair number. I didn't bet it. Did you bet this one?
You know what? I don't even know if I should. For the narrative sake, I hate saying this to the people. I did take a little bit of Troy at 3.5.
Oh my God!
I know. I got to cover. If I got so many South, I have enough South Bama futures to buy a new condo in South Bama if they can win this division. Troy, they're playing. So I'll tell you that the situation we had here is Troy's QB. Troy's QB Gunnar Watson gets hurt. Jared George comes in. He's been outplaying Gunnar Watson. Watson starts last week, ends up getting pulled for Doge. Doge comes in again, plays fantastic. I'm interested to see who they start in this game. Because I will say, my boys in Mobile, the defense is a little leaky. But I will say, finally, after a few weeks of the South Bama numbers being out of control, I played some ULM last week.
I did too.
These numbers, I get, and it's one that maybe just because people won't including me won't shut up about talking about them. Some of the South Bama prices the last few weeks have just been absolutely insane. This is one. I think 3 is right. I did take a little 3.5 to emotionally hedge if we go down. Hopefully South Bama by 1, 2, or 3. But I will have this on. I should fly down to Mobile to go to this game because this is a big one for me. And I think it's going to be an absolute barn burner. And I tell you, whoever wins this game is going to win. Not just win the division. I think they're winning the Sun. These are the 2 best teams in the Sun Belt. I think by
besides
outside of
James Madison, who can't win it.
Yeah, since Madison can't win,
but they lost last week
to win it. So I'm excited for just the showdown in Mobile.
All right, you got any closing thoughts? Is that it?
You wanna listen? I know you got some Hooker Heisman. Are we down to a 3-man race for the Heisman? 2-man race? Is it just Stroud and Hooker here? You got any Heisman?
I got both already in pocket in July, so I'm good there. I think it's a 2-man race right now. I can see Hooker winning it. I mean, if he beats Georgia, we'll see. I mean, and I've said this time and time again, it has totally changed in my lifetime. I'm not that old, but I mean, I'm getting there. But it used to be when I was a kid, career lifetime achievement. Now it's literally, and it shows you how our society has changed. What have you done for me lately? What did I just last see in the biggest game? So honestly, it's going to come down to how Hooker does against Georgia, how Stroud does against Michigan, and if both are playing on the championship weekend, whoever has the best game in that game. So ask me then. I've already bet both at great numbers, so I'm not running the window to hedge back on anybody. I do think they're two of the clear-cut favorites right now.
Yep.
I'll say this. I do think Bryce Young's still the best player when you watch him play and the stuff that he does bouncing around. I mean, Alabama, again, I said this at the top. Alabama would be a 3-loss team without Bryce Young. That's how good he is.
No, I agree. And if I know there's some Will Levis NFL draft buzz from him.
Oh my God.
If somebody takes him over Bryce Young, woo!
Or CJ Stroud.
I can't. Kentucky doesn't even want to throw the ball. They're like, oh, we got the number one. Look at the difference between what Bryce Young has to do for Alabama to stay in games and what Kentucky has to do. They don't even want Levis to throw the ball at the end of games. They're trying to hand it off every play. So
I'd take Hendon Hooker over Levis.
I agree. I don't know. I don't have tools. I hopefully Mel Kiper doesn't know what he's talking about. Shout out there to my girl Clarissa Shields, Flint Town baby. I see it in the chat. Had a big bet on her against that Britt Marshall. So shout out Clarissa, best female boxer in the world from good old Flint. Her story is, I don't know if you're into that, but her story is fantastic. She had a huge tough upbringing, sexual assault at a young age, like incredible, and is now like the pound for pound best female boxer in the world. So shout out to her for getting the big win and cashing some tickets for Joey K.
You won some big money there? I'll bet on anything. You and I were betting on that redneck boxing, I think in December.
So, that was a nice one there for her. Honestly, I think she got a little, even the scorecards made it seem closer than it actually was. So, that was a nice one over the weekend for a hometown hero, Clarissa Shields.
Before we get out, last quick hitters on the chat. I did bet UAB +3. You got to have 3, though, in that game against Western Kentucky. UCF 5 at ECU. Don't really have a strong opinion there. Did you bet anything in either one of those two games real quick?
I agree with you on the UAB. I'm out until Holton Ahlers is working at a grocery store or something on the East Carolina. But I knew when Memphis got the ball back last week and was driving down, like, it'll be another painful Holton Ahlers. I can't even blame him for last week. The crap ECU defense, whatever stupid scheme they're running there. But I don't have anything in that one.
ULM +7. I mean, I get it's tough laying points with Army, but man, that's a short numbers in my power ratings.
It's a bad defense. ULM's it's not a defense you want.
Yeah, I don't know if they can stop it. I know Army's quarterback was out last week. It doesn't really. They don't mean that much to this. I mean, they got a bunch of guys that can play and run that offense. So I honestly like Army there, to be honest with you. And then Duke +8. I don't know, man. Real quick, I do want your quick thoughts on this one because I'm almost best bet material on Miami just because I don't understand the market the last 2 weeks. Miami played North Carolina 2 weeks ago. They're laying 4 at home. I get it. They lost the game outright. But that is basically saying Miami is a little bit better than North Carolina. North Carolina played Duke last week, laid 7 on the road. I get it. Duke covered, but it wasn't nothing significant where you're changing teams dramatically as far as power ratings. And yet this is saying that, Miami is less than all of a sudden, far less than North Carolina because they're only laying 8 at home. I mean, if you could, do that transitive property, we're not going that many steps. We're talking about the same opponent the last couple games these two teams have played. So I don't think Duke's cheap. Where are you at in this game?
I knew some people I know that were big on if you follow the market Saturday, probably the biggest move, when once the limits are at full was on Miami, which basically got steamed up close to, I think some 10s flickered from there. And just one of the most brutal, backdoors where Virginia Tech offense can't gain a yard against anybody all season. Nope. Miami just dicks around, doesn't close it off there. It would be Miami or nothing for me, but they are just, it's been letdown after letdown, and Josh Gaddis, disappointing as it gets from a play caller's perspective. I don't think Cristobal is a great head coach there. So Agreed. It's one of me talent differential. Yeah. Is Miami, should they be higher? Yes. but it's not a team that I want to invest significantly in on a week to be a small play on Miami would be it for me, but not some team that I love taking positions on just because their coaching staff is a clown show.
Agree there, and also worry about Duke kind of running out of gas. Overtime, Georgia Tech to the wire game against the rival North Carolina. Now you're to Miami. Miami had a recent bye. Miami should have covered last week. Miami took money late in the week, so everything for me says Miami's the right side. And I actually think the line's going to close closer to 10. Wink, wink, hint, hint. When it's all said and done. So if you want to play Duke, wait a little bit. I think you're going to get some better numbers later. So that's going to do it for me. If that's going to do it for you, buddy.
No, that was a good one. Good run. Hopefully we'll get it back on track this week, baby.
I think we will. We got some dual best bets there that we both agree on. I think we're in really solid shape. Remember, we said last week that last week was a little tough coming into it. This week, I'm always feeling pretty good, though, to be honest with you. But we'll see. This week in particular, this is the most confident I've been in the last several weeks. So I think we got some good ones for you guys. Hope you enjoyed it. He is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish. I'm Brad Powers. We just hit the books, part of the Hammer Betting Network.